is at 300 West. The shooting suspect is inside the McDonald's. He is contained, moving around in there. Still shots being fired.
On July 18th, 1984, a mass murder took place at a McDonald's restaurant in San Diego. According to statistics on the number of deaths, this incident ranks 7th among all mass shootings in the history of the United States. 911, what's your emergency? July 8th, 441-year-old James Huberty said his wife, Etna, he thought he was mentally unstable. 2 days later, on July 17th, James called the psychiatric hospital and requested an appointment and left his contact information. It turned out that the hospital operator did not find the request urgent due to James's polite communication on the phone, and therefore James's request for psychological help was left to be evaluated within 48 hours. At that time, James was thinking of getting a call back from the hospital person the same day. He sat by the phone for several hours, waiting for their call. But when he did not receive a call from the hospital, he suddenly left the house and set off on his motorcycle in an unknown direction. About an hour later, James returned home in high spirits and joy. After lunch, he and his wife and 2 daughters went to a nearby park on their bikes. In the evening of the same day, James watched a movie with his wife. James Wednesday, July 18th. In the morning, he took his wife and daughters to the San Diego Zoo. While walking through the zoo, he told his wife that he thought his life was over. He said, "I gave society a chance one day," referring to the psychiatric hospital's refusal to recall James the day before. After lunch at McDonald's, Herbert's family returned home. Shortly after arriving home, James approached his wife, who was lying in bed. He leaned over and said, "I want to kiss you goodbye." When Edna asked where he was going, James said, "I'm going hunting, manhunting." James walked towards the door of the house and carried some belongings wrapped in a blanket. James looked at his oldest daughter, Zelia, and said, "Goodbye, I'm not coming back." James got into his black sedan and drove down San Diego Boulevard, stopping at a Big Bear supermarket and then going to the post office. At about 15:56, James pulled into the parking lot of a McDonald's restaurant near his home on San Diego Boulevard. James had a Browning high-power pistol, an Uzi submachine gun, a Winchester 1200 shotgun, and a cloth bag filled with hundreds of rounds of ammunition for each weapon. There were 45 people in the McDonald's restaurant in line, and they only had minutes to come face to face with the ruthless monster. James entered McDonald's and fired his shotgun from 5 meters away at 16-year-old restaurant employee John Arnold. James Hubert pulled the trigger of the shotgun, but nothing happened. He started to examine his rifle, and at that time, the 22-year-old restaurant manager, Nia Kay, thought that the incident was a joke and fired it towards the ceiling at Arnold, and then pointed his Uzi submachine gun at Neva Sin and fired one shot at her. The bullet from the gun hit Neva Kane under the left eye, and Nia died there a few minutes later. James Hubert, immediately after killing the restaurant manager, John Arnold, a restaurant employee, shot him in the chest with a shotgun and then told everyone in the restaurant to get on the floor. He told everyone in the restaurant that they were dirty pigs who had killed thousands and would kill thousands more. The 25-year-old customer of the restaurant, Victor Rivera, tried to convince James Huberty II not to shoot again. While most of the restaurant customers tried to hide under the tables, James Hubert turned his attention to 6 young girls and children who had gathered together. As he approached them, he first killed 19-year-old Maria Colmenar Silva II with a single bullet in the chest, and then shot 9-year-old Claudio Perez several times in the stomach, cheek, thigh, leg, back, and head. His sister Imelda Perez was shot in the arm. James shot 11-year-old Aurora P., but could only injure her in the leg because her 18-year-old pregnant aunt Jackie Rye covered her with her body. Because of this action, James shot Jackie Ray 48 times. Jackie Ray, who lost her life, was not only pregnant, but also had an 8-month-old child named Carlos Reyes. Carlos was sitting next to the dead body of his dead mother and was screaming and crying loudly. James Hubert shouted at Carlos and killed him with a single bullet to the back. James then went around the entire area inside the restaurant and started shooting all the restaurant customers who were hiding under the tables and behind other furniture. Many of these people, ranging in age from 10 to 75, were seriously injured, while some lost their lives immediately at the scene. Many of these people were desperately and bravely trying to protect their families and friends. They were heroically protecting each other from the gunshots, but the ruthless James started killing everyone around him. The first of many 911 emergency calls was made at around 10 o'clock, but the operator who answered the call directed the police team from the wrong scene to another McDonald's restaurant 3 kilometers away. The police officers responded very quickly to the address error, but it took them 10 minutes to get to the correct address. This error increased the opportunity for James to kill as many innocent can as possible. While the police arrived at the scene, a young woman named Lydia Flores drove to the McDonald's parking lot. When she stopped at the food order window, she noticed the broken glass and heard gunshots. When she looked out the window, she saw a criminal firing a gun. In a panic, she quickly reversed the gas pedal of her car and crashed into a fence. The woman, who was afraid to get out, hid in the car with her 2-year-old daughter and sat there until the shooting was over. At approximately 16:05, another car drove towards the McDonald's building. In the car were OST Olfa Felix, 31, his wife Maricel, 23, and their 4-month-old daughter Carlita. When OST Olfa noticed the broken glass of the restaurant, he first thought that the restaurant was under renovation, and that James Heenan, who was walking towards him, was a renovation worker. When James Felix approached his family's car, he shot the entire family with a shotgun and then drove off in the other direction of the McDonald's property. The 3 members of the Felix family were badly injured, but fortunately managed to survive. As James was walking away from them, they got out of the car, and Maricel handed her injured and screaming 4-month-old daughter into the arms of her husband, Horst Olf. At that moment, a young woman named Lucia Velasco, who was running away from the incident, ran past them. OST Olfo handed her daughter Lucia into her arms, and Maricel shouted in Spanish, "Please save your baby." Lucia took the baby to a nearby hospital, and Lucia's husband helped the Felix couple go to a nearby building. He helped them hide there while waiting for medical help. A few minutes after the incident, Omar Hernandez, Joshua Coleman, and David Delgado, 11-year-olds, entered the parking lot of the restaurant on their bikes. They wanted to get drinks from McDonald's, but when they approached the restaurant, they heard people shouting at them in an incomprehensible way from across the street. The frightened children began to look around, but at that moment, James Hubert came out and shot them with a shotgun. Coleman survived, but Delgado and Hernandez lost their lives immediately at the scene. After James H.T. shot the children, he noticed an elderly couple named Miguel, 74, and Ada, 69, approaching the entrance of the restaurant. When Miguel started to open the door of the restaurant for his wife, James Haber shot him with a shotgun, killing Miguel's wife Ada in the face. Miguel was injured. Miguel picked up his dead wife and began to curse James H. While wiping the blood from her face, he wiped the blood off her face. In response to Miguel's actions, James approached him and fatally shot him in the head. James, who returned inside the restaurant, approached the service counter, and he tried to tune his portable radio to a news channel to hear the news about his crime. Finding no news, James left the music on and started dancing while continuing to shoot people around him. A few minutes later, when he entered the kitchen of the restaurant, he saw 6 waiters there. He shouted at them, "There are more here. You are trying to hide from me." After these words, he shot all the people in the kitchen with a shotgun. All of these workers were between the ages of 17 and 21. 4 of them died immediately at the scene. After James left the kitchen, 2 young girls who were seriously injured managed to escape by going to the art room and waiting for the shooting to stop. At one point, one of the first victims of the shooting, Aura R. Pena, noticed a lull in the fighting. When he opened his eyes, James saw Hobin standing nearby. Seeing that AA had regained consciousness, James cursed at him and threw a box of fries at him and shot him in the arm, neck and jaw with a shotgun. Despite all the injuries he received, Aura survived, but her treatment took longer than anyone else injured in the restaurant. After 4:10 p.m., the police officers reached the correct address of the McDonald's restaurant. The first police officer to arrive at the scene, Officer Miguel Rosario, was Rosario. After seeing James H. shoot at the police car, he realized the extent of the crime that was being committed and quickly relayed the information to the San Diego Police Department. Within minutes, reinforcements from multiple police units arrived at the scene. They closed off the entire area around the scene and set up a command post 2 blocks from the restaurant. 175 police officers were strategically placed around the scene. Initially, police were stationed outside the McDonald's restaurant. He did not know how many criminals were inside because James Hub had used several different types of firearms and had fired them frequently in rapid succession. Most of the restaurant's windows had been shattered by bullets, making it difficult for police to observe the incident from a distance. Police were concerned that there were 1 or more criminals inside the restaurant and that they might be holding hostages. One of the men who escaped from the restaurant during the incident told police that there was only 1 criminal inside the McDonald's building who was not holding hostages, but that he was shooting at everyone he encountered. At around 5 p.m., the police officers were joined by SWAT team members who had taken up positions around the McDonald's restaurant. At 5:05 p.m., all police officers and SWAT team members who arrived at the scene were given permission by the San Diego Police Department to shoot the criminal inside the McDonald's. 27-year-old police officer and SWAT team member Charles Foster positioned himself on the roof of the post office, approximately 32 meters from the scene. He had received orders from police commanders to shoot James Hubbert if he could see him clearly. At 5:17 p.m., Charles Foster, James Hubbert, slit his neck and upper torso openly for several seconds. He was able to see James and immediately fired a shot at him. The bullet hit James in the chest and tore the auricular vein under his heart. They built an apartment building and became the manager of this apartment building. The Huberty couple had a daughter named Zelia in 1972 and Cassandra in 1974. James was physically abusive to his family members. He was violent towards his daughters. He sometimes put a knife to their throats and was violent towards his wife. Edna had tried to convince her husband to see a psychiatrist many times since 1976, but James refused to get psychiatric help. James's neighbors, colleagues, and acquaintances described him as an unhappy, nervous, and paranoid person. According to them, James was a pearl, and any insult directed at him would always try to respond or retaliate. But due to his nervous nature, he would accept many things as insults. James believed in a worldwide conspiracy and was always ready to fight for his survival. He believed that the Cold War would turn into an apocalypse and that the US government had even set up a conspiracy against him. He believed that the Soviet Union was a great threat to the world and that there would be an economic crisis and nuclear war because of the Soviet government. James considered himself responsible for preparing for the upcoming apocalypse, and for this reason, he had filled his house with plenty of non-perishable food and many guns. According to an acquaintance of his family, James' house was full of firearms. James could reach a gun from anywhere in his house by simply reaching out. Each of the firearms was loaded, and the safety on the gun was off. His wife Edna had tried many times to calm her husband down by various means. She had tried to influence and control James's behavior. Thus, Edna convinced him that she could read him, and James believed her. She began listening to Edna read tarot cards, and this method sometimes calmed him down. In November 1982, James closed the company. It was claimed that it was due to metal poisoning. According to Anna, James's poisoning caused him to hallucinate. An autopsy was performed on James's body. The autopsy results showed that James's body contained high levels of lead and cadmium. This supported ETA's assumption that James was poisoned by breathing in toxic metal vapors while working as a welder, but this fact did not help him win the case. In addition, the autopsy results showed that James had no alcohol or drugs in his system, meaning that he was conscious when he did all of his actions. In 1987, the court rejected the Edna case. After a while, Edna and her daughters moved to another city. Her daughters enrolled in a local school under pseudonyms. In 2003, Edna Hubbert died of breast cancer. Information about her daughters' lives is currently unknown. For more videos like this and to support me, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like the videos and comment. See you in the next video.